Hi guys, welcome back. Today I want to share with you some beautiful quilting ideas from American Patchwork and Quilting, as well as I have the little tutorial that I did to show the way that I put my curved pieces together. Let me get this ready for you here. Started working on the quilt blocks. I did my practice block here, and even though I had done one of these not long ago, maybe a year ago, I decided to just go ahead and refresh my memory on the correct way to do it, and just to be aware of what the steps that I was facing would be. And so that's one of the reasons I did it. And I like how it came out. I'm certainly not using these colors though. This is just for testing. This is actually going to be my Press On by J. Weckerfresh. And that's going to be the Riley Blake 10-inch squares that I'm going to use for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And I've got my template that I cut out of the magazine. Was ready to go, and I've got my magazine handy. My magazine is handy, and now I get to pick which fabrics I'm going to use. The way it is that you can cut out, according to the pattern, you can cut out several pieces from one of these 10-inch squares. So the ones that have a lot of the same color, I'm going to use those secondary. Not that I won't use them, but I'm just going to hold off on those. So there's 4 pinks, 4 of those turquoises. I'm putting those to the side. There's only, 2 of these. So I'll go ahead and use these. And that's kind of how I'm going to go through this, because keep in mind that this is going to be a wall hanging for my place, and it's only going to have 9 motifs, 9 blocks. So I'm keeping that in mind too. And that's going to guide my decision. So there we go. Really cute. Actually, I guess I'll use this one instead of that single one. These ones with the bigger print on them, I don't think I'm going to use that. It's going to get lost because it's only like a 4.5-inch square, so that won't work for that. But this will work. And I did use black for the trial, but I'm not going to put any black in this block for to be used in my apartment here. So that's my process. The whites, the off-whites and whites, I don't know. We'll see. How many do I have so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I might do 2 with the green. 7. And I guess I'll go back to those original ones I said I was going to hold off till later. 7, 8, and 9. There we go. You want to make sure that you have your center of your pieces marked, whether it's with a crease or a disappearing pen or pencil, doesn't matter. Just make sure that you mark them. And then that'll give you at least a fighting chance at finding where the center is of your curved block piece. So that's what we'll do. Give them a little crease. Figure out that's the center. Put the 2 centers together. And yep, they are completely different, but that's what you need. And then you want to make sure that this is not going like that. You want it to be even with the horizontal section of your block here. So you don't want to pin it like this, right? You want to make sure that these other planes are lined up too, and that's going to make a huge difference with your block. There we go. It's probably about as close as it's going to get. Then you want to bring this over here. Give it a good little twist. Get that line even with the line on the block. Okay? You don't want it twisted and going in the other direction. You want it so that when you fold this up, they'll both be going in the same direction. Same thing on this side. Get it turned completely to the side and then match up your edges. And then when you put your pin in, and after you're done sewing, you'll have the orientation of your pieces will match. Now the tricky part is getting these two pieces to match up. And it's going to be a little frustrating in the beginning, just for a little bit. Just until you do it a few times. Once you've done it a few times, you're going to realize where you need to kind of ignore the bubble, like right there. There's a little bit of a bubble there, don't worry about it. That's not going to affect whether your crease is, whether your seam is going to render a crease. Because I think that's what, the one thing that somebody like, you can handle it if it's a little bit outsized, or if it's a little too small, you figure, okay, I'll cheat it out in the seam allowance. But if you are aware that you have this giant pucker in that seam, it's going to probably bug you if it's noticeable. And when I say noticeable, I mean like after you've quilted it and washed it, can you still see it? Yeah, then that's what I'd call noticeable. But if you've done your quilting and your washing, and as your quilt will get bubbly anyway and wrinkly anyway, just from that process, a lot of things are going to just fade into the quilt. And these types of little tiny pinches and pleats, you won't even see them. You truly won't see them. So that's why I personally, I don't mind using a lot of pins if it means that I can sew it once and move on to the next one, and generally speaking, get done quicker than if I had used another method and then have to seam rip, which I don't want to do. All right, so then you can remove that one from that side. And if this one looks good, which I think it's good, we can start sewing. You want to bring your stitch length down to a little smaller. Always better to do that when you're sewing curves. And give yourself a little back stitch. And I'm doing this with the camera blocking my view, so you gotta bear with me. If it looks like I'm running over my pins, I guess I might be. But I am going slow, and I'm I'm wearing glasses, and I have the cameras between me and the needle, so I think it'll be okay. All right, so We did get some pressed in wrinkles, but we did not get anything pinched in the seam. So that's how you would sew this on. And with this particular pattern that I'm using from American Patchwork and Quilting Magazine, I noticed that the pieces that they give you to trace, if you were using a pen or pencil tracing the outside of it, by the time you cut on the outside of that trace, you've actually given yourself a little bit of wiggle room to trim down your squares. So that's also kind of comforting to know that you have a little room. So we'll give it a little press. And it's supposed to be 4.5 inches. Yeah, it is, with a little bit of wiggle room. About this way. Oh yeah, even more wiggle room that way. So another really important thing to notice is if you're, let me get that right in the middle of the camera. If you notice there's a 1/4 inch mark here along my ruler, and you want to try to have that 1/4 inch right there, right where the seam is, before you start trimming away. Same thing with the bottom. Try to see if you can get that 1/4 inch in there, or as close to it as you can get. Because you're better off to trim off a little bit of the red instead of trimming off the white. You don't have a lot to play with in the white. So I'm going to call that. And so here's the 1, 2, 3, 4. Even though that says 4.5, that's going from this direction. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's the half. There's the half right there. So I'm actually quite a bit over. So that's all right. I can work with that. I don't want to be under. That's the thing I try to avoid. Okay? Me, I do use pins. You can use dots of glue if you like, but for me personally, I feel that the time that it takes for me to do the pinning, sewing, and pressing, I've got it all done in the time it would take for me to do several of the other methods I've tried. So if it works for you, please feel free to do it. And I hope you enjoy that. I have a grandson that's turned 12 this month. So that's really cool. I cannot believe how the time flies. It is very beautiful, and it's good for Scrappy. And I love, that's my favorite. Scrappy quilts are my favorite. The thing is, if you don't use your fabric, if you don't use some of your cuts of fabric, like your 10-inch squares and those things, 5-inch squares and whatnot, and your yardage, you won't have any scraps. So unless people give them to you, but you know what I mean, you're not going to generate scraps unless you start cutting into your fabric. So that's what made me decide to go ahead and pull out a couple of the different 10-inch square packages that I have. One was the one I showed in the video that I did have to open the plastic and like crack it open today. Another one I have has juvenile print on it, and it's a lot of neutral colors, and it's got like a juvenile camping vibe. And that's the one I'm going to make the baby quilt out of. Not the rare Camille, what Bonnie and Camille fabric that I realize is just really not around anymore. And so I don't believe I will be just giving that away. I think I will be giving some thought to what I put it in, and I will probably give it to a family member because I don't have room for, to keep every other project I make. So that is really kind of a special collection. And so that will more than likely go to a family member, and that's the plan for that. Sorry about the wrong I spoke too soon in the last video about donating it, and I was like, when I realized that this is something I'm never going to get this fabric again, they're not making it anymore. I was like, oop, oop, record scratch. Hold on. No, let's rethink this. So I do have another one that is a juvenile print that's very cute and would be great for kids, and especially for little boys. I know we all love to make quilts for children and babies, and the little girl quilts tend to, I don't know, for whatever reason, they just tend to be more endearing than the more rugged boy quilts. But I really enjoy making the quilts for men and boys. I love the fabric selections, ones that have like fishing pictures, mountain climbing pictures, BMX bikes, sailboats, and all that. I mean, not that girls can't do that; they certainly can. But I'm just speaking in generalities. That I love those fabrics, and so the dinosaurs and everything. I think I have dinosaur print in almost everything I've made in the past year. So love all that. So anyway, I really like it when I can make a donation quilt that can go to either a boy or a girl, as well as making one for girls. The little sweet little pink and yellow and green and blue, those are beautiful too. But it's nice when I know that it can go to either boy or a girl. And especially I know a boy's going to like it. So all that to say, I will be doing something different than what I said in the last video. Pardon me. So that's in a recent magazine of American Patchwork and Quilting is that one. It's curves, but I think the reason why it really caught my eye and really kind of got me fired up is that it's got a dark background. And I have not been making quilts with dark backgrounds lately. And come to think of it, I've made them with bright backgrounds. I have made them with plaid. I've made a lot of plaid quilts. That's another thing people aren't crazy about using. And in this case, I didn't want to use the plaids from my most recent 10-inch square pack because I was concerned about getting them a little crooked. Like you can see in this quilt behind me, that is a very large green and white gingham. And I was just using one piece for half of the backing on that quilt. And I was just like trying so hard to make sure that I got it relatively even, because if it had been askew like this, I wouldn't have enjoyed looking at it at all. Just me. I know it doesn't really matter in the effectiveness of the quilt, but just something for me. If I have it in my home and I'm looking at it, it's going to bug me. So that was my motivation. And so I did realize that the 4.5-inch squares, honestly, the squares, I can cut them so that they're not askew, and I can sew them so that they're not askew. And so that won't be a problem. So I can use the plaid in that pattern. And initially, I believed I was only going to need 9 10-inch squares. But no, each one of the blocks uses 2. So as you can see, there's 4 pink and 4 red. And so I actually needed 18. Another reason for me to rethink my decision about using the plaids. So I will probably put a plaid or 2 in there too as well, which I love. So what about you guys? Do you use dark backing on your quilts? I love it. I don't know why I just don't think of it. And it would make it easier for me to use something other than regular batting on the inside of the quilt. As the economy changes and as things in the world are changing, I'm rethinking my approach to my hobby. And it is a hobby, and I am giving away 90% of what I make, and I enjoy that. So now I have to get that in focus. So probably going to try using some lightweight flannel to make a lightweight quilt and see how it goes. If you got any tips for me, send them my way. So I think that's going to be it for today, friends. I hope you enjoy that little tutorial, and I hope you get out and get some fresh air and go for a walk. That's what I'm doing right now. And get your water in. Do those self-care thingies. And most of all, keep smiling. Bye.